And welcome, sports fans, to today's Roundtable. Glad you joined us after a couple weeks off, having some things over the weekends the last few weeks, and coming a bit later in the afternoon for today, trying to get some results from the area games that we've got in volleyball. Big games taking place throughout the area today in high school volleyball and sectional play, and sectionals and quarterfinals being played today, and the winners will be advancing on to the state championships next week in Cape Girardeau at the Show Me Center in Cape Girardeau. So a big week, not only volleyball but also high school football getting underway with district tournament play last night. We'll have results from those games from last night, Friday, throughout the area, and take a look at the matchups taking place next week, as well as the volleyball matchups taking place today that will eventually some get to the semifinals and the Final Four in volleyball state championship play. So we'll be taking a look at those in just a moment, but no games that we did last night. We took the week off. Typically that first round we kind of take off depending on the area, but we're going to be back in action next week. We'll talk about a game that we'll cover next week, and we'll probably be covering quite a few games from here on out for district tournament play. So I'll be looking forward to that for the month of November. Pretty much the month of November is district, or not only district, but playoff football here in Missouri. And let's go ahead and take a look at some matchups that took place last night. We'll go ahead and stick with the district tournament play. We'll stick within the same districts each for each classification. And starting off with Class 1, District 1, the top seed Valley Catholic Warriors took care of Crystal City, no problem, 53-0. And Valley Catholic will advance on to the semifinals, where they will play the Malden Green Wave, who got a road victory against the Charleston Blue Jays, 18-13. They advance on with a nice victory in the first round. Malden's had a tough year. I think they ended the year with 2 wins, got a nice win in the last week of the regular season against Dexter, and went into district play with only 2 wins on the year, and got a nice win on the road. It's a nice win for the Green Wave to get a district win to advance on. Going to have a tough opponent against Valley up in St. Genevieve next week, but solid victory for the Malden Green Wave last night on the road in Charleston. And Hayti, no problem. The defending Class 1 state champions defeated the Chaffee Red Devils 64-0, where they will advance on to take on St. Vincent, the 3-seed St. Vincent, over the Portageville Bulldogs last night up at St. Vincent, 48-22. So the Portageville Bulldogs season comes to an end, but that will match up Hayti and St. Vincent in that semifinal matchup next week in the Class 1 District 1 semifinals. And again, that first semifinal, Valley Catholic versus Malden. So those are your semifinal matchups in Class 1 District 1 next Friday night. And moving on to Class 2. In Class 2 District 1, the top seed Scott City Rams advance over the 8th-seeded Herculaneum 40-8. No problem for the Rams. Last night actually that's 49-8. And Scott City coming up with one of their finest seasons they've had in a good while, getting that top seed in the Class 2 District 1 tournament. Will have home field advantage throughout that Class 2 tournament. Class 2 District 1 tournament if they advance each week. So they advance on to the semifinals, where they will take on the New Madrid County Central Eagles, victorious last night at home as they hosted the Kelly Hawks, and got a decisive victory at 48-18. And New Madrid County will advance on to take on the Scott City Rams. Should be a good matchup between those two next week up in Scott City. That'll be one of the main games to look forward to next week. One of the games of the week we'll see between Scott City and New Madrid County Central. Should be a good one up there at Scott City, where New Madrid's had a nice bounce back year this year, getting some impressive wins on their schedule, and getting that home first round game against Kelly, and now advancing to take on the top seeded Scott City Rams. So we'll see what happens there next week. Should be a good one. Second seeded Crothersville easily over East Prairie. It's 67-20. Putting up a whole lot of points last night down at Hockey Field in Crothersville. So Crothersville will advance on to take on St. Pius X out of Festus, as they got a win over Jefferson, the 6th seed, 29-16, And that'll match up that semifinal. Crothersville will host St. Pius X out of Festus down at Hockey Field in that semifinal. And there's your semifinal. Scott City versus New Madrid County Central. Crothersville versus St. Pius X. They're in Class 2, District 1. A little bit of different, a little change this year, as Malden's typically been in that Class 2, District 1. They moved down to Class 1, playing that Class 1, District 1. It seems like it's been Crothersville versus Malden in that championship game for as long as we can remember. But a couple new teams as New Madrid goes down from Class 3 to down to Class 2. And Scott City moving its way up in the top part of that Class 2 District 1 this year. So a little different Class 2 District 1 as we've seen over the years, but certainly not any less competitive as we've seen in years past. And moving on to Class 3 District 1, the first round. Kennett dominant over the Doniphan Dons, 56-0, and Kennett remains undefeated in their season. They advance on to the semifinals, no problem for the Indians last night, and that's been pretty much the whole season for Kennett. And they will host the semifinal next week as they will take on Potosi. Potosi defeated Perryville in a close one, 20-14 in Potosi last night. So Potosi advances on to take on the Kennett Indians in the semifinals. Second seeded Park Hills Central defeating Dexter once again. They played just a few weeks back in the regular season up in Park Hills, and they get the victory once again last night. 20-0 victory over the Dexter Bearcats, and the Bearcat season comes to an end. And a tough year for the Bearcats. Only got one win on the year, and it's just been one of those years for the Bearcats. But hopefully they bounce back with a strong year next year. And but tough go for the Bearcats this year. Park Hill Central will advance on to the semifinals. They'll take on St. Genevieve, the 3 seed defeated 6 seeded Fredericktown 31-7, and two typical district opponents there. We've seen them in many district championship games between Park Hills Central and St. Genevieve. Should be a close one between those two. I think Park Hills got the win earlier in the year. I think that was about 3 or 4 weeks back. So Park Hills will host St. Genevieve in that semifinal next week. So there you are, the semifinals next Friday night in Class 3 District 1. Kennett versus Potosi, Park Hills Central versus St. Genevieve, and we'll see what happens there in the semifinals next Friday night. And we'll have more about those semifinals. The game will be broadcasting next week, coming up in just a moment. And moving up to Class 4 District 1, Farmington with the top seed, getting the win over 8th-seeded Windsor, big 63-7. 4th-seeded Festus over 5th-seeded DeSoto, 41-7. Big win for Festus. And also 2nd-seeded Cape Central getting a win over 7th North County, 42-6. So the Cape Central Tigers will advance on to the semifinals where they'll take on Hillsboro. Hillsboro, the 3 seed, got a victory over 6th-seeded Sykeston, 23-6. So Sykeston season comes to an end, kind of an up-and-down season for the Bulldogs this year, and they fall out in that first round against Hillsboro. So your semifinal matchups will be Farmington versus Festus, Farmington hosting Festus, and Cape Central hosting Hillsboro. That Hillsboro game should be a good one for the Cape Central Tigers. Cape Central struggling at times this year, but nonetheless coming away with a 2nd seed in the Class 4 District 1 and getting a nice home game in that semifinal against Hillsboro next week up in Cape Girardeau. So we'll be looking forward to those games next week as well. And taking a look at Class 5, they took the night off last night, and they will resume next week. They only got 4 teams in that conference, as Jackson, the top seed and undefeated on the year, will take on Seckman. They will host Seckman up at the Pit in Jackson, and 2nd seeded Poplar Bluff, 3rd seeded Poplar Bluff will be on the road up in St. Louis at Fox High School, as Fox will host Poplar Bluff in that semifinal game. So 4 teams in that Class 5 District 1. So taking the week off this Friday and back in action in the semifinal round next week. So that's a pretty good deal for the Class 5 District 1 teams, getting all teams getting a bye this week back into the semifinals next week. So Poplar Bluff going to have to travel a bit up to Fox High School in St. Louis, South St. Louis, up there in Arnold. So nice little road trip for them. Usually, Papa Bluff's been fortunate to actually host quite a few of those semifinal games, either of Seckman or Fox, and it's typical that we get Jackson and Poplar Bluff. Jackson and Poplar Bluff in that championship game. So hopefully we'll get that once again. Always a nice Southeast Missouri battle between those two schools each year for that Class 5 District 1 championship. So we'll see what happens next Friday night in their semifinal matchups. And let's take a look at some of those. Let's take a look at some of the headlines from last night in the area. And first, starting off with wrong one there. New Madrid County Central defeating Kelly. Nice performance by the New Madrid County Central Eagles last night, and quite the addition back from Christian Phillips. Christian Phillips coming back from an injury from pretty much the first half of the season. He come back and he's the starting quarterback, but Matt Riley, sophomore quarterback Matt Riley, has done a great job filling in for Phillips in the first half of that season. And Phillips came back at the quarterback position, and Coach Fullhart of New Madrid made a little adjustment in the lineup and brought Matt Riley back in at quarterback, moved Phillips to receiver, so that receiving core is just that much more potent. You got one of the best receivers in the area in Austin. He's the great receiver for the Eagles, and now moving Christian Phillips to receiver as well. A dynamic athlete out on the perimeter once again, and also rushing the ball, especially off that jet sweep, just makes the Eagles' offensive attack that much more fierce. And we've seen that over the last few weeks, and it really showed last night against the Hawks. And Quazavion Jackson, big-time running back for the Eagles in the backfield, had a big night last night. 209 yards rushing for Quazavion Jackson, and one of the best backs in the boot heel there in Quazavion Jackson, and a nice team effort by the Eagles. So seeing a bit of a different lineup as we've seen earlier in the year. Matt Riley back in at quarterback, and Phillips and Austin at receiver, and still Quazavion Jackson really making plays there in the backfield as well. So pretty potent offensive attack out of the Eagles. We'll see if they can carry that on into next week up at Scott City. Should be a great matchup between those two teams in that Class 2 District 1 semifinal. And also taking a look at, did want to mention the Scott City game. Don't have that, got lost here in the mix here. But Malden's win over Charleston, a big win for Malden. Only one, I think 2 victories in their regular season. Got it over Portageville and Dexter. And anytime you go in with a losing record into district tournament play and get a win to advance, that's a great accomplishment for the Green Wave. They advanced over Charleston last night. They'll go on the road, take on Valley Catholic. But nonetheless, a great performance by the Mullen Green Wave last night. Shay Amos, who's come back due to an early injury, I believe, come back with a great performance last week. 3 touchdown passes against the Dexter Bearcats last week in Dexter, and answering with a big night last night as well. I think 269 passing yards for Shay Amos at the quarterback position for Malden. So congratulations to the Green Wave, Coach Peden and staff, advancing on with that victory last night against Charleston. And also want to recognize Bernie softballer Allison Markham signs to play college softball next year. Senior softballer for the Bernie Mules. Signs with Florida Southwestern State. Did that this week. Congratulations to Allison Markham. Advancing not only her educational career, but her athletic career starting next year at Florida Southwestern State. So not a bad trip there to Florida to play softball at the college level. Congratulations to Allison Markham. And we're going to take a break, and we're going to talk more about, we're going to touch on the game that we're going to broadcast next week in high school football, and then we're going to talk about the volleyball sectional results and the quarterfinal matchups that are also taking place here on Saturday. We'll take a look at that in just a moment.
Hey folks, it's hot out here, but the deals are even hotter. Like this late model Equinox starting under $300 per month, or a Ford Focus starting $149 per month, or several pre-owned Ford Escapes under $200 per month. Baldwin Ford Lincoln Toyota, home of the lifetime warranty.
The end of summer sales event going on here at Baltimore Lincoln Toyota. With pre-owned RAV4 starting under $200 per month, plus a great selection of Tacomas, 4Runners, and Sienna vans. Baltimore Lincoln Toyota, home of the lifetime warranty.
And welcome back, and taking a look at the football broadcast we've got slated for next week. And took the night off last night in the first round of districts, and we will be back in broadcasting action next Friday night as we will be down in Kennett at Metz Cherry Stadium to broadcast the Class 3 District 1 semifinal matchup between Potosi and Kennett. So look forward to that, bringing that to you live here on Channel 21 on New Wave Cable, YHCTV.com, and our Facebook and YouTube pages. So check that out on Facebook Live next week as well, as we will bring you Potosi versus Kennett in the Class 3 District 1 semifinals. And it's been quite the season for the Kennett Indians, undefeated all the way through, and haven't really been challenged. Haven't been challenged all year long, and this is the time of year where the challenges will come. It's just a matter of when. And Potosi will be more of a challenge than Donovan in that first round for sure. So we'll see what happens there. But the Kennett Indians got to be ready to play. You know, that's the thing about when you roll through a schedule like they have this year. You're not really accustomed to playing 3 and 4 quarters throughout the year. And I tell you, when it's only getting colder, playing in those cold conditions as well as the conditioning. But that's one thing about a Joel Wyatt team. Conditioning will not necessarily be an issue. He's one of the best conditioned teams. He coaches one of the best conditioned teams in the area in the Indians, so don't really have that much of a concern. Kennett playing into deep in the third and even potentially fourth quarter, but that's what we've seen teams in the past that have really rolled through their regular season schedule. Pretty much, the starters playing a half, maybe just a few minutes into the third quarter, then resting the rest of the game. Get deep into the playoffs and district and state tournament play. You're going to eventually match up against a team that you're going to have to play 4 quarters for, and teams it's really hurt them in the past. But this Kennett Indians team, I think they're going to be conditioned to take on anybody for 4 quarters. But we'll see what happens next week as they take on Potosi in that semifinal game. Really looking forward to being back down at Metz Cherry Stadium with the Kennett Indians taking on Potosi in that Class 3 District 1 semifinal. Myself and Tommy Jacobs will be there to bring you the play-by-play action live from Metz Cherry Stadium in Kennett next Friday night. So look forward to that one next week. And also we want to take a look at some volleyball action, and we're going to take a quick break and take a look at those volleyball results from today as well as the quarterfinal matchups that are taking place this evening as well.
At Glen Sain, we're going to sell more Chevrolet cars and trucks between now and January the 1st than we've ever sold before. Listen to this. New Chevrolet Malibu, $19,458, $99 down, $299 a month. A 2019 Silverado, list price $48,080, your cost $34,970. What a savings. GlenSainParagle.com, best price, best service. Glen Sain, God bless our church.
If you or your loved one has disabilities that cause you to need a little help, Boot Hill Area Independent Living Services can provide the assistance you need. At Bales, we want you to have control of your life and assist you in thriving in an independent lifestyle. The Consumer Directed Services Program allows you, the consumer, to choose who assists you in conducting your daily activities. Bales serves Stoddard, Dunklin, New Madrid, and Pemiscot counties. Call or visit our office in Kennett to see how we can help you maintain your independence.
And welcome back, and now let's take a look at some volleyball sectional results that took place today in high school volleyball. They have the sectional and quarterfinals the same day, and taking a look at taking a look at Class 1 sectionals that are taking place in Bloomfield today. Advance, the defending Class 1 state champions, and just a juggernaut of a volleyball team. They won the Stoddard County Conference no problem, and advance on the sectionals over Bloomfield, their Stoddard County foe, and they win that 2-0 to advance on to the quarterfinal round that'll be taking place this evening as well, probably close to being taking place here this evening as we record here. And Holcomb getting a nice sectional victory as they advance over Crystal City in 2 straight sets. So the Holcomb Lady Hornets volleyball team advances to the quarterfinal round. Congratulations to Holcomb getting that 2 straight set victory over Crystal City, and just having to go up against the defending Class 1 champion, Advance Hornets. But Advance and Holcomb in the Class 1 quarterfinals later this evening in Bloomfield. So if you're around here, check that out, and should be a good match there. But either one team, Holcomb or Advance, will be advancing on to the Class 1 State Final Four, which are held, the championships are held in Cape Girardeau at the Show Me Center next week. So congratulations to Advance and Holcomb advancing, and one of those will advance on to Cape next week in the Volleyball State Final Four for Class 1. And take a look at Class 2 in the sectionals today. Woodland and Valley Catholic do battle, and Valley Catholic wins it in 3 sets, 2 sets to 1. And Valley Catholic will move on to the quarterfinal round later this evening. And haven't gotten any results on Twin Rivers and St. Pius X. Just haven't got any results out there yet. But Twin Rivers and St. Pius in that sectional game, I'm sure it's well over by now, but just haven't able to get a hold of a result there. But hopefully Twin Rivers will advance and potentially take on Valley Catholic in that quarterfinal round. And also other matchups today, the Class 3 sectionals. We've got St. Genevieve taking on Windsor, and also Perryville taking on Rosati Kane. And Perryville, a pretty nice program there in high school volleyball out of Class 3. And we'll see what happens there in Class 3 sectionals in volleyball today. Now in Class 4, we got some results as Lafayette defeats Oakville in the Class 4 sectional 2 straight sets. And the Jackson Lady Indians fall to Coruscant Academy 2 sets to none. So Jackson, one of the top programs in the area as well, especially amongst the big schools, fall to Coruscant Academy in that Class 4 sectional. So there you go, as that will match up Lafayette and Coruscant Academy in those Class 4 quarterfinals later on today. And those are your matchups. Volleyball, well, hopefully we'll get some local teams in there. We'll have Holcomb or Advance, potentially even Twin Rivers based on the results that they have today. And a little further up north, Perryville, or what was that other team there? Perryville or St. Genevieve further up north. I might have a chance to make it to the State Final Four in volleyball for next week as well. And that's what's great about high school volleyball in our area here in southeast Missouri. The state championships are now held for a good amount of time already, and will be into the future at the Show Me Center at Cape Girardeau. So we're used to traveling, either to Columbia or Springfield, it seems like, or St. Louis, depending on, state championship contest. But volleyball is one of those sports that's really convenient for us here in southeast Missouri, just right up the way in Cape Girardeau. So it's nice on our local teams. They can come back and sleep in their own beds instead of a hotel, and have a convenient trip as well. So we'll see what happens as those state volleyball championships held in Cape Girardeau next week. And that's all we got for you for today. Not a whole lot to report on other than the local state championships or local state tournaments, as well as the district football tournaments taking place. And again, we'll be back in action next Friday night down at Metz Cherry Stadium as Potosi comes to town. Potosi versus Kennett. We'll have it live for you right here on YHC next Friday night at 7 p.m. from Kennett. So look forward to that next week. And that's all we got for you for today, and we appreciate you for tuning in as always, and we'll see you right back here next Saturday for another roundtable. Hopefully get some guests in to round out our roundtable for the rest of the fall here. And until then, I'm Tyler Wagner. Have yourself a great day.